Okay, guys, I'm back. This is why that poor guy had no water and he was really suffering. I could tell, because you don't just ask a stranger for a sip of water unless you really need it. Or I wouldn't, because you just don't know what people are carrying. So this is why you're known to be prepared on a hike, especially it's 73 and cool, but this hike is on the way up pretty strenuous. So he was ill prepared. So I gave him a sip and I was like, you know what, I can't drink from this water, because I mean, you can have all kinds of like bacteria transferred from drinking from other people. Meningitis commonly is transferred that way, mono, even COVID. So I had to go back into town and get another bottle of water. And for future reference, if you guys are on hikes, you got to be prepared. Like, I felt really bad for him, but like, especially when we get deeper in the summer. Hiking 101, always bring your water, electrolytes. And if you don't have that, like I said, get a life straw and drink directly from the water source. Those things are awesome. They filter the water and everything. I used one when I was in Peru. But anyways, bring your water, hiking 101. And also for me, I'm gonna bring an extra bottle of water, just in case someone is ill prepared again. But I couldn't walk away and not give him water. Like, he was really, really having a hard time. So I did my good deed of the day. So I'm back on this hike, and I can't remember where I left off. Oh, I was saying that since I moved here, my motivation factor in my life has really gotten better. Of course, not living in the concrete jungle, like I said, helps. You're just immersed in all this beauty. How can you not want to explore it? So I'm going to do some more hiking. I'm going to go and do a little plunge today. I lasted 2 minutes last time. I'm going to see if I can do 2.5 or 3 minutes. What I've learned about ice plunges, and Sebastian taught me this, and Wim Hof, is the breath. The breath is so important in controlling that nervous system. It's the deep breathing, because when you get in that cold water, your fight or flight hormones become very erratic. They get crazy. Your adrenaline surges. So the first thing you want to do is, the body is like, I don't like this, I'm not comfortable, and I want to jump out, right? But if you take deep breaths, deep, slow breaths, you train that brain to go into a parasympathetic state. And typically, at least in my case, after about 30 seconds of doing deep, slow breaths into my diaphragm, very slowly out through my mouth, I can kind of gain control of my thoughts and that fight or flight, adrenaline surging, where I want to jump out. So once you do it, like I said, 30 seconds, the water, you start to adapt. I think even Wim Hof says after a minute of cold, you start to adapt. But deep breathing is key. So I'm going to try to do 2.5 minutes today. And also, so this is my 3rd day on low dose ketamine therapy. And so far it's been amazing. Like, I think that's also contributing to my motivation increase. So ketamine, it's been around I think it was discovered in the 1960s, 1970s. It's been around for a while. You know, it's very similar to PCP. So first given, it's still given in the hospitals and vets. So it's an anesthetic. Very similar to PCP in that it can provide anesthesia, but also it it allows for control of your respiratory muscles and airway so you don't stop breathing. But they found that PCP does the same thing, but they found in patients that, which is interesting, I didn't know that, when they used to give PCP to induce anesthesia, it was really good for that. And also, like I said, it didn't impair respiratory reflexes, so you didn't stop breathing when you were in surgery. But when the patients would wake up, they would go into severe hallucinations and go kind of crazy. So ketamine is similar to PCP, but it is a dissociative anesthetic. It's in the class of psychedelics, but I do microdosing, and I microdose my ketamine, and I've been taking, I just took 30 milligrams yesterday. Very, very low dose. So at low doses, it does not cause a dissociation, which is separation, which is separating of your body or feeling out of body. It's kind of an altered state of consciousness that it can induce. But I love it. It actually, ironically enough, reminds me a lot of the deep meditative states that I used to be able to go into after my awakening. So some people know, I don't really talk about it openly because it does freak people out, but in 2020 I got really sick, and it was really scary. I really felt acute threat on my life. I had like a lot of other traumatic events that played up to that part of my life, and I think I was just primed and ready for an awakening. So after I got sick, I started having strange things happen to me, out of body experiences. I could go into deep prayers, like pray for long periods of time. I could get into deep meditative states, where I would see beautiful displays of lights when I'd go to sleep. Just these beautiful geometric, bright blue, orange, red, beautiful colors just displayed when I would go to sleep. There was also times where I was struggling to breathe in 2020 in the beginning of my illness, and I would go into these meditative states, and I would almost feel like I would start to dissociate to some degree, but it was almost like God was breathing for me. And I don't know, I had so many strange things happen to me during that time. And just feeling of oneness with God, and just an overall sense of well-being, and just oneness with nature and people and God, like I said, and just being able to go into these deep meditative states, which were beautiful and they were healing. But I disconnected from the world because these experiences were so beautiful and so healing. I didn't want to go back and assimilate back into real world, right? But ketamine is similar in that I can go into these beautiful deep states of like meditation. The first night that I did ketamine, I only took 15 milligrams. They come in small troches, so I take them sublingually. And you just put it between your cheek and your gum line, let it dissolve. And within 20 minutes, you start feeling more relaxed. It's kind of a slight euphoria. Nothing, you don't really get into a dissociative state with such low doses, which I like. So the studies are showing now that even in low doses, so basically how ketamine works is it binds NMDA receptors. It's an NMDA antagonist. And somehow, indirectly, it affects glutamate receptors. So it increases glutamate in the brain. So it works all centrally. It's not like a classic antidepressant in which you are just basically working on serotonin, dopamine receptors, or neurotransmitters. It's completely different. It works centrally. And it really supposed to boost that glutamate activity in the brain. So glutamate, now the studies are showing, they even have actually FDA approved drugs in NMDA receptor antagonists that actually prevent Alzheimer's dementia by way of increasing brain-derived neurotropic factor. It's great for the brain. It also shows that when we are learning more and more that depression is not a serotonin or dopamine deficiency. It is rather issues with the connection between our prefrontal cortex and that, I can't remember the name part of the brain. It's deep near the thalamus. No, it's the deep part of your brain. I can't remember if it starts with an A and I'm drawing a blank, but it controls your fight or flight. So if you are chronically stressed and you're chronically in fear or anger or sadness, you have an hyperactive, it's very hyperactive in that part of your brain. And the connection between your prefrontal cortex and that part of your brain can break down. Their nerve cells can break down, and that's what can cause depression, chronic stress, and chronic states of anger and sadness, and these emotions, these fight or flight states can induce a sense of depression. So any type of trauma and illness can trigger these things. So ketamine helps rebuild those neural synapses between those two areas of the brain. It also increases glutamate. So it has other far-ranging other effects which are great for the body, which like I said, because they work on glutamate, it's anti-inflammatory. It also, in some cases, I think it does help bind opioid receptors. So we are now using it. Of course, they've been using it for acute pain already, but it's also being shown to help with chronic pain. I've had patients with fibromyalgia have superior pain relief from it. And like I said, I feel overall a sense of well-being. I feel more like myself. And I also feel like how I felt right after my awakening. I just felt, like I said, I could get into these deep states of meditation. And like I said, that first night that I did it, it was beautiful. I started feeling energy in my hands, like this beautiful warmth and energy. And I felt led to start praying for people and asking for healing for certain people in my life. And I was getting visions of certain people to pray for. And so far, it's just been a beautiful experience. I feel like I'm starting to feel more like me. Like my confidence is better, my focus. I would not be doing these videos 2 years ago. Heck no. Super insecure about myself. But now it's with ketamine on board, it makes you feel like you just stop caring about things that seem futile, right? You are this person experiencing this beautiful experience. And it's we have so much to learn from each other. And if we're not expressing ourselves and we're not sharing it, then we can't learn and grow from others. So, the sense of expression and wanting to be creative and not fear what other people think is this beautiful thing. And we've become so programmed to fear. Even when I did some ketamine a second day, I started seeing and I was getting flashbacks of things that happened to me when I was a child that I had no idea that affected me as an adult, traumatic experiences, or maybe not so traumatic, but just certain things people said. But I was able to objectively view it and forgive that person for their lack of understanding, for their ignorance. And I think it's beautiful that this drug allows for that. And you just start to see some of how we've become so conditioned from society, and that we believe certain stories about ourselves that are not even true, right? and that we think that we are these emotions, but we really aren't these emotions. We are just, these emotions happen to us. They are not us. These experiences happen to us. They are not us. So ketamine's been beautiful so far. I've only been on it for a few days. I'm just going to keep myself at a very, very low dose. But if anyone has had chronic stress or depression, anxiety, you've tried the SSRI route, the SNRI route, you know, I would definitely look into ketamine. This is, you know, disclaimer here, you know, I'm not your physician or your doctor. I can't recommend it. But if you've been, I would say, if you've been experiencing any kind of chronic stress for long periods of time or anxiety, and you've tried first line treatments, you've tried meditation, you've tried yoga, you've tried deep breathing, you've tried diet changes, you really have gotten a full medical workup and everything looks good, and you want to try something, I would definitely look into it. I would, of course, discuss it with your doctor, see if you're a candidate. But so far, I've only been on it 3 days, and I feel more like myself. Of course, like I said, the move and just the change of scenery, and I think our environment definitely affects us tremendously, probably 30-40%, I would say. But ketamine is definitely an eye-opening experience, and it's just really cool. Like, and it's safe, you know, like it's not, you know, very low doses. You're not going to feel high. You're not going to feel dissociative states. So, and I don't even really feel side effects, as far as maybe just a little dizziness, kind of equivalent to maybe drinking a glass of wine, but nothing intense. But it's been wonderful so far, and I definitely would recommend it for those that are kind of like researching ways to heal. I mean, we've all have chronic stress and anxiety, some people more than others. But when you get into that fight or flight, you get stuck in that cycle of fight or flight. I can't remember that part of the brain. It's driving me insane. But when you get stuck in that, the brain is programmed. Our brains are programs. We can program them to think positively or negatively. And if we are always programmed in a fight or flight state, that the bear is always attacking us and running after us, you're going to look at every situation that is even remotely threatening as the bear is attacking you, even though the bear might not be running after you. So ketamine actually helps rebuild those neural synapses that have been broken from just like chronic stress and anxiety that has not been managed appropriately. That's why it's great for PTSD. So those triggers that used to trigger people from their PTSD are no longer triggering them, because they are rebuilding those nerve pathways. So they're looking at it differently. You're looking at your trauma differently from an objective like bystander, and you're not really emotionally involved. But I think it's beautiful. And plus I love where I live. It's absolutely gorgeous. I'm gonna turn my camera around and show y'all how just beautiful it is. And I think we need, as humans, we need nature. We need it at least, I would say, at least if you're not getting out in nature, at least an hour a day. I would recommend it at least an hour a day. Even if it's just the park. We need this time. We need this time away from electronics. We need this time away to contemplate and to be connected to Earth's frequencies, to kind of heal these anxieties and things. So I'd recommend, if you're not going out in nature at least an hour a day, you should. I mean, we can't be stuck in a box a whole day. That is not what we were designed for. We were designed to be outdoors. And it's truly healing. But anyways, I hope you guys all have a beautiful day. Sorry for my long rant on ketamine, but I just wanted to share it because I think it's just such a beautiful experience and a beautiful drug, and I think it's been amazing for me so far. Like I said, it's hard to really assess. It's only been a few days. Of course, there's other variables at play, like I'm not working as much, so therefore my stress levels are down, and I'm not in a chaotic city, concrete jungle, Las Vegas that I was in. And the energies up here are definitely different. So those are, of course, other variables that I have to take into consideration, but I'm hopeful that this ketamine is going to help. And I'm going to continue to take it, and I will continue to update y'all. But I'm just grateful for my life, grateful for everything that had to happen to me to get me here. Sometimes we don't know it. Like, sometimes we just are in the thick of chaos and confusion and fear and stress, but we can't see the outcome. We just have to just walk and trust and enjoy the experience as best we can.